The finishing move is the action that ends up taking out your opponent, as it is the main weapon a fighter uses to knock out their rival. Some have been quite original in choosing their ideal finishing move, others have copied it from legends, and there are also those who have a rather basic but very powerful finishing move. However, like everything in wrestling, not everything can always go 100% well. Some finishing moves are not executed correctly and end up causing injuries or other problems. That's why I'll stop talking now, and today I'll show you 15 finishing moves that ended in the worst way in WWE. Number 15. Stone Cold. Stone Cold's finishing move, called the Stunner, has claimed numerous victims over the years. The execution of the move depends both on how Austin performs it and how the recipient sells it. Over the years, we've seen many superstars sell the Stunner perfectly, but there was one person who really didn't sell that move well at all. We're talking about none other than Linda McMahon. The McMahon family has had a love-hate relationship with Austin over the years, and almost all of them have tasted the Stunner. But Austin tried to be a little gentle with Linda McMahon, but he ended up missing the mark since the latter couldn't sell the move properly. Later we would find out that Linda McMahon suffered a dislocation of her bones. Number 14, John Morrison. John Morrison returned to WWE in January of 2020 after 8 years away from the company. The fans were excited for the return of Shaman of Sexy in WWE. They brought him back as a villain and paired him directly with his former tag team partner, The Miz. All of this drove the fans crazy for bringing back one of the most popular teams from the end of the Ruthless Aggression era. John Morrison had his first match on January 17th, 2020 in an episode of SmackDown against Big E Morrison. It was for his infamous Starship pain move, but somehow he sped up the execution and landed far from his opponent. But the fans didn't care about the botch, as they were happy to see Morrison back. The problem was that Morrison revealed in an interview that with that mistake he could have easily broken his foot because his foot didn't land properly on the mat. In the same way, Morrison's return brought good luck because he and The Miz managed to win the tag team championships again after a long time. Number 13, Randy Orton. Randy Orton's Randy Knockout has taken its rightful place among the most iconic finishers in WWE history. It was based on Diamond Dallas Page's Diamond Cutter, but Randy Orton improvised a bit by jumping before executing it. The Viper has claimed numerous victims with this impactful move. During a match against Rob Van Dam, Randy Orton tried to hit his opponent with the Randy Knockout, but ended up driving Rob Van Dam's head into the mat. It's not known if Rob Van Dam wanted to sell the move and overdid it, or if Orton tried to execute the finisher with more force than usual. This caused an unsuspecting Rob Van Dam to land headfirst on the ring. The result of this was that Rob Van Dam broke his neck and disappeared from WWE for quite a few years. Number 12, Brock Lesnar. We have rarely seen the Beast Incarnate perform aerial moves. In fact, since he last returned to WWE, we have hardly seen any aerial moves from him. This is because, according to him, he became very afraid of performing those moves. That fear began when at WrestleMania 19 he tried to perform a shooting star press on Kurt Angle. Unfortunately, he miscalculated and broke his neck. This was told by Brock Lesnar himself in his autobiography. Kurt Angle has said that he heard the sound of Brock Lesnar's neck when he fell. And that's why nowadays the Beast doesn't do any moves from the top rope. Number 11, Triple H. Triple H couldn't have a more perfect finisher than his infamous pedigree, since the move goes very well with his attitude. The Game is someone who has rarely caused injuries to his opponents throughout his career, but he had an exception with Marty Garner on an episode of WWE Superstars on June 1st, 1996. Triple H faced Marty Garner, and when he went for the pedigree, Marty Garner confused it with a hook suplex and tried to jump. While the move was being performed on him, Marty Garner ended up landing on the top of his head and suffered a serious neck injury. In this case, we could say that Triple H is not at fault at all. It was Marty Garner who misunderstood the move and tried to take it in a different way. Number 10, Undertaker. The partnership that WWE has with the Sports Authority of Saudi Arabia forces them to bring in many old school superstars for a match or to make an appearance during the shows in Saudi Arabia. The company sought the help of Goldberg and The Undertaker for the main event of Super Showdown in 2019 and promoted the event with that colossal match. Both superstars clashed in the main event of the night, and while Goldberg was going for a spear, The Undertaker dodged it, which caused Goldberg to crash into the ring post and bust his head open. The Deadman made things worse by dropping Goldberg on his head with a tombstone piledriver while he was still bleeding. This move was so badly executed that many company doctors said Goldberg could have lost his life right there in the ring. Number 9, Goldberg, The Undertaker's failed tombstone piledriver. It wasn't as bad as it seemed that night. As we said before, in Saudi Arabia they try to bring in legends, and in this case, they made a main event with 2 legends. They were already over 50 years old and hadn't been very active lately. In the ring, since the whole event was promoted around this great match, both superstars had to find a way to finish things. Goldberg gathered some energy and tried to perform a jackhammer on The Undertaker, but he ended up executing the move very poorly as The Undertaker landed with all his body weight on his neck. The Undertaker seemed to be paralyzed for a moment, but he managed to gather enough strength to perform a chokeslam on Goldberg and thus end the disappointing match. In the WWE Network series Last Ride, The Undertaker said that if he had landed just a few inches to the side, he could have lost his life that night in the ring as well. Number 8, Owen Hart. If it weren't for this poorly executed move, the course of WWE would have been very different. Stone Cold was on fire in 1997 and ready to face Owen Hart for the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam. Both of them faced each other in a very tough match. Owen Hart was always known as a very confident guy in the ring, but that night everything went unexpectedly. Owen Hart gave Stone Cold a pile driver. Apparently, Austin wasn't held properly by Owen, so Austin landed on his head and broke his neck. Owen, realizing that something was wrong, stopped for a moment and waited for Austin to get up. And surprisingly, he pinned him for the 3 count, even though Austin took the victory. That injury would halt the career of the Rattlesnake and therefore change the course of WWE forever. Number 7, Rob Van Dam. This mistake may have marked the end of a big push for Rob Van Dam in WWE. In general, when you botch your moves, you should avoid landing on the other superstar's throat. But that's exactly what Van Dam did in this Elimination Chamber match in the year 2002. Although it's not very visible, RBD landed on Triple H's throat with his knee. Triple H's throat swelled up so much that he had to spend the night in the hospital. Although Triple H didn't publicly blame him for the injury at the time, many believe he held a grudge because of it. The worst part of all this was that the Game started to panic right in the ring. And according to the doctors, he was close to losing his life that night because air wasn't reaching his lungs. Number 6, Kevin Nash, the man best known as Big Show or the Giant. Originally, he was supposed to face Nash at Starcade. However, Nash couldn't be at that event, so it was rescheduled for Sold Out the following month. The big question everyone had was which Giant could hit his finisher on the other. Would Nash be able to hit the Giant with a power bomb? In the end, we realized that Nash couldn't pull it off, and even worse, Nash almost dropped him right on his head. Considering the size of the person involved, thank God this didn't cause serious injuries or the loss of Big Show's life. Number 5. Chris Benoit is considered one of the most daring wrestlers in the history of World Wrestling. He risked his life throughout his entire career. Even though those close to him warned him to change his finishing move, all those blows would take their toll and would ultimately lead to the tragic end for him and his family. In an episode of SmackDown, Benoit faced Booker T. The match was fairly even, but at one point Benoit decided to take a risk with a move that wasn't so well planned. And as Booker T himself revealed, that move wasn't even in the plans for the match. Although it wasn't a poorly executed move, we could say it was an unplanned move that caused Benoit to be out of action for several days. Because of this. Number 4, Spike Dudley. The former Extreme Championship Wrestling wrestler Spike Dudley was known for taking extreme bumps both in Extreme Championship Wrestling and WWE. Perhaps the worst of all came in the form of a failed double powerbomb from inside the ring to the outside. A table was waiting for Spike's fall, but instead, Spike ended up crashing into the space between the table and the ring. To make this blow even worse, the back of his head crashed against the table, causing a gruesome impact while the table remained firm. The aftermath of this poorly executed move by the team La Resistencia was that Spike was left with some concussions for a few hours. Number 3, Lita's. This case is a bit similar to the one we already saw with Benoit earlier. Lita was a real daredevil in the ring, since she performed moves that not many female wrestlers could even attempt. Her legendary friendship with Trish Stratus led to many incredible matches, but in one of those bouts, Lita almost broke her neck. In a terrible botched move, Lita tried to hit Trish Stratus with a suicide dive through the middle rope. But she failed in the execution and landed directly on her neck with no protection from Trish. This looked horrible at first, but fortunately Lita wasn't hurt that badly and was able to continue the match. But this horrible botch shows just how scary it can be. If these high-flying moves aren't executed perfectly and with proper protection, could we say that this is exactly what happened to Benoit? Benoit and Lita jumped out of the ring without measuring the jump. Number 2, Brock Lesnar 2.0. We said that Brock Lesnar is usually a safe guy in the ring. By that, I meant that he's someone who has never been seen with any bad intentions. But thinking back, there was one particular incident that left everyone wondering. Back in 2002, Brock Lesnar was facing Hardcore Holly. The match was going pretty well, and Brock Lesnar tried to deliver a fierce powerbomb. It was at that moment that Lesnar couldn't hold Holly properly. But even so, knowing he didn't have a good grip on him, he decided to throw him to the mat anyway. The result of this poorly executed move was that Hardcore Holly broke his neck. It is said that at that time, Lesnar was heavily criticized, because it's unforgivable for a wrestler to know that the move won't go well and still want to perform it. Number 1, Bret the Hitman Hart. Bret Hart once said that Goldberg is one of the least professional wrestlers in history. This bad relationship between Goldberg and Bret Hart goes back to the late 90s, when both wrestlers faced each other at the Starrcade event where the Hitman defended the World Championship Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship. During the match, Goldberg hit Hart with a super kick, causing a concussion that ended his career. Since then, Bret Hart has blamed Goldberg 100% for executing the move incorrectly. According to him, the kick was delivered with too much force and straight to the face.